Hello and welcome to GuyLogicGaming. My name is Temko and this is Shadowhand, developed by Grey Alien Games and published by Pashitek Games. It is a strategic RPG card game, which is a mouthful for sure. What it boils down to is a Solitaire-like title where you combine cards into a sort of mini deck you can play out while you fight ahead and clear the board of a set of cards, Solitaire style, while also dueling enemies. Bit confused? Don't worry, we'll dive into gameplay in a second, because Shadowhand is actually quite interesting, if a little bit niche. But before we dive into gameplay, we're gonna take a look at the options menu and talk about PC performance and PC settings. The options menu though is a little bit lackluster. Now the game is 2D, beautifully art styled in this very nice style, pastel colors in the background and a sort of visual novel-esque style in the cutscenes in between. But overall though, you don't really see any options to change that, and that is okay in this case. What is less okay is the lack of options for changing your resolution, the ability to go full screen windowed, or even the colorblind mode. Just 3 sliders for music, ambient sound and sound effects really don't hit the mark as well as I feel they really should. The ability to change tutorials, blood and custom cursor, well, it's nice that it's there, but tutorial is really required, so I would keep this on for sure. Whereas blood and custom cursor are nice little additions, but I'd rather have had a resolution option. Overall, not the worst options menu, but definitely missing a few major things that I would have liked to see in a game, even if it's 2D. But visually, no complaints. So let's go ahead and just dive into gameplay. So as we dive into gameplay, there's 2 main notes to make. First is that the game is split in about 22 chapters that follow a pretty linear progression path through the entire title. And every chapter has multitude of challenges and their own set of gimmicks and mechanics that spice up the gameplay in between matches. Obviously you can change the game on normal and hard, though honestly on normal the game is pretty damn easy and I found myself wishing for a harder run through even on the first time. So playing on hard, even if you're not greatly familiar with this type of game, is actually recommended. Now, each chapter introduces itself, and each chapter and each transition between stages of a chapter has this visual novel style story mode where the gameplay sort of tells you what the hell is going on in terms of the story. Now, from a visual perspective, this looks fine. While I'm not a great fan of the art style they've gone for in terms of character models, the backgrounds and overall scenery looks nice and clean, and even if I don't like the character models, all the clothing, all the weapons, and everything in between has a nice cohesive style. So there's no marks against the title, it's just not my personal preference in terms of models. That said, when we look at the card visuals and when we look at the weapon visuals and we look at all the extra things do shift a little bit in the favor of the game away from my own personal preference, because the game's level of detail in a variety of outfits and things you can equip and weapons and everything you have available in terms of just extra visual fluff even on your character is something they didn't need to do and yet did. So when you equip a new set of pants for your character that gives you +1 luck, or you equip a new hat that gives you better stealth, you see that reflective in your character model, and that is pretty cool. I do really like that little bit of detail. The details on the cards themselves, in terms of playing cards though, are fairly limited and the cards are pretty drab and mundane. Now this might be a negative, especially if you only ever looked at these cards, but because the game switches around so many things in terms of gimmicks around the map, even rotating cards, putting them upside down on the side, stacking them one over the other, any more clutter in terms of visuals on the cards themselves on the playing field would actually detract from the visual clarity. So while they don't look as fancy as you might want them, this really helps you notice what the hell is going on with the match and what is going on the board in terms of what you can do. I really do like this design decision. That said, the goal of a match is really to clear the board. The secondary goal of most challenges is to fight a boss. I'll show all of that in a second. First, I want to talk about how the game progresses you and what you can expect in terms of gameplay content, because the game uses a 3-star rating system that you can play on normal mode as well as hard mode. The annoyance in this, and also the benefit of this, is that you can replay levels and hopefully up your score. Now when you replay a level, you get to keep whatever you had from levels down the line. So you could come back to the very first level and maybe you struggled or maybe you even lost against this very first boss and come back with weapons and armor and upgrades way down the line in chapters 10 or 15 and just beat this guy to a pulp in a few seconds because you're so far ahead of him, even on hard mode. And that takes away quite a bit of the challenge of playing with restricted things. On the other hand, if you're a completionist and you just want to come back here and get those 3 stars out of the way, that actually might be a nice thing. Now, as I mentioned, the game throws a couple of curveballs at you left and right. Most often it is the case that you clear the board, but it is not often the case that you just clear the board as is. It's not really Solitaire. It's inspired by that, but definitely not the same. Most chapters will have an end boss to fight, like this rogue, that requires you to match up the cards based on the board and charge up your weapon. Your weapon charge up allows you to then attack your opponent. And you can have multiple weapons and even have consumables, health potions, grenades, and everything in between. It's a fairly complete and robust set of strategic mechanics. Now, while the game says it's an RPG combined with a strategic card game, they are not lying. The progression of your character is tied into the variety of the things you can do on the board. So you get special abilities and you'll influence those abilities with your passive upgrades, such as willpower or luck, allowing you to clear 2 cards at the same time or find more jokers in the deck that you can use sort of as a wild card if you're missing the matching card from your board. And you have extra abilities that allow you to block enemy attacks. You have extra possibilities to plan ahead. Is your opponent going to have the chance to clear the deck? Can you block them from doing so? Can you plan ahead based on what cards are available? Can you read the flow of the battle? Everything in between. While the game on the surface seems to rely a lot on luck, there is a surprising amount of planning and thinking that you need to put into every move you make. And that is both enjoyable and interesting. Now, if this was a competitive game, if this was a esports title, I would say that the RNG mechanics in the game serve no purpose and are annoying. But this is not a esport title. This is not a competitive game. This is you enjoying yourself playing against the AI. And for that, the RNG mechanics throw in a little bit of spice just to throw a curveball at you where you're never certain and never relaxed enough to just say, well, I'm probably gonna win because I'm 5 weapon points ahead. You might just get your ass handed to you because you weren't paying attention and the luck of the draw was not with you. And I do truly enjoy that in terms of RNG and in terms of spicing up the gameplay in between the gear you get, the weapons you have, and the upgrades you have available. Now, having spoken about the art style and spoken about the basics ideas of the mechanics, it is important to also note the audio, which is not fantastic. While the initial cutscene is voiced over, everything in between is fully silent. And when you talk about the background music, while the combat music is nice and fast and gets you in the mood to get some combat going, you are playing a card game, just sort of relaxing and sitting back, not exactly the most heart-pounding, thrilling action. So the music really is a mismatch on the title in many ways. It's not bad music in and of itself, but when coupled with a aristocracy-based game where you are this duchess or this princess or whatever you might be, and you're playing cards or fighting swords or having dialogue with someone and the music in the background doesn't fit, it really distracts from the overall gameplay. And that is a damn shame. I would like to see more fitting music, bit more orchestral, bit more medieval than something like this, and that is kind of annoying. That doesn't detract though from the overall gameplay. While the music itself is annoying, just lowering it down really solves that issue. The mechanics of the game are truly enjoyable, and coupled with the art style, it keeps you visually occupied while not distracting you from the overall impact of the gameplay. Now, as I said, mechanically, the base idea of the game is very simple. You select the card you have in the bottom, you click a card on screen that is the similar number, one lower or one higher, and it goes from 0 to 9, with 0 and 9 overlapping going to the next one. Overall, fairly simple, right? No real things you can imagine that might throw a curveball. Well, what about streaks that gave you extra gold so you can buy gear? What about special abilities that you see in the bottom left that you can use on occasion that need to charge up every time you use them? What about joker cards and special keys that are locked? What about cards that get shuffled around and you have to clear multiple cards before getting to that card below it? And while all the time you have a limited deck with a limited number of cards available to you to deal with. So overall, you're balancing getting gold so you can buy upgrades, balancing clearing deck as fast as possible to get that high score and get bonuses for your gold, juggling the availability of your abilities, which rolls over in between chapters of your challenges. Like the Masquerade Ball has 6 challenges within it, so my abilities roll over and their cooldown rolls over in between those challenges. It's very, very cool that you have to think ahead what might be awaiting you, especially if you're playing for the first time. This really keeps you on your toes. I really, really like it. And then Then when you have the challenges to face enemies, each enemy has its own gimmick. They might be resistant against weapons, they might be resistant against swords or muskets. You might need to score a specific number of points with your fencing weapon while you're facing off a French lady that is there to do something. You might need to survive against thrown attacks. There is a variety of different things that the game balances it around, and that is damn cool. Now, pulling that all together, the mediocre audio with the limited scope and linear style of the game does limit how fast and how hard I can recommend this title. If you enjoy playing a casual game, playing this for maybe 15-20 minutes at a time, just relaxing a little bit in between whatever else you might be doing that requires your attention. Maybe you have kids, you just sat down, your kids went to bed, and you just want to have half an hour of brainless fun just thinking ahead. Or maybe you just enjoy relaxing and figuring out solutions to randomized puzzles. Then I wholeheartedly recommend Shadowhand. If you're looking for excitement, if you're looking for a competitive experience, this isn't it. What it does offer is an immense amount of challenge and a surprisingly deep interaction and combat system. The combat itself, though, is a sideshow to the upgrades, to the customization of your abilities, and the interaction with the board you have with your abilities. The RNG elements spice things up, and the various curveballs the game throws at you in a myriad of challenges do truly create an amazing amount of replay value for those challenges. Overall, Shadowhand is pretty damn good. Visually appealing, deep and rich, especially for a card-based game, which surprised me immensely. When you think of Solitaire, I think of the game I played back when I was in primary school and got bored out of my skull during computer class. And here I am recommending Shadowhand because Solitaire is still fun when you add sword fighting, pirates, the bourgeoisie, and, well, everything in between. Shadowhand coming out on Steam and GOG on December the 7th for the price of $15 or your regional equivalent. And if you're interested in the title, you can check it out with a link in the description below. A surprisingly enjoyable experience I did not see coming, and in this December month, just before Christmas time comes around and nothing else really gets released, it's really enjoyable to find a gem like this that is put together with love, quality, and an amazing amount of attention to detail, even in places where you would not have expected it, such as the card art not being cluttery so it doesn't interfere with the gimmicky mechanics. The game shines through on every angle. So thank you for watching. If you like this video, do press that like button down below. If you didn't like this video, well, there's a dislike button for exactly that purpose, and leave a comment. Tell us what you think about Shadowhand and its gameplay, Solitaire-esque, RPG, RT-esque, whatever adjective I can add mechanics. Tell us down in the comments below. And if you want to see more content like this on the channel, just press that subscribe button down below and we will deliver. So until then, I wish you a good day, and until next time, right here on GuyLogicGaming.